All right, folks. Thanks for checking out the video. I want to talk today about the FBI having so many paid informants at the Capitol on January 6th that they lost count. Okay, so this is an exclusive report from the New York Post. And it says here the FBI had so many paid informants at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, that they lost track of the number and had to perform a later audit to determine exactly how many confidential human sources run by different FBI field offices were present that day, a former assistant director of the Bureau has told lawmakers. At least one informant was communicating with his FBI handler as he entered the Capitol, according to Stephen D'Antonio, formerly in charge of the Bureau's Washington field office. D'Antonio, who has testified behind closed doors to the House Judiciary Committee that his office was aware before the riot that some of their informants would attend a Stop the Steal rally thrown by former President Donald Trump, but he only learned after the fact that informants run by other field offices also were present, along with others who had participated of their own accord. The Washington field office had to ask FBI headquarters, quote, to do a poll or put out something to people saying were any CHSs involved, he said, so they could get a handle on the scale of the FBI spying operations at the Capitol that day. We started getting responses back from FBI headquarters, added D'Antonio, which helped identify which field offices had planted confidential informants in the crowd. One paid informant from the Kansas City field office was at the Capitol as the crowd surged inside and allegedly was in communication with his FBI handler while they were in the crowd, I think, saying that they were going in, according to the former Bureau brass. They were trying to stop some of the action happening and they left or whatnot. Asked how many informants the audit discovered were in the crowd that day, D'Antonio would only say, quote, a handful. The FBI spends an average of $42 million each year in payments to its confidential human sources, according to the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General, which has raised concerns about the vetting process for these paid informants. In a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray Tuesday, Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan described D'Antonio's testimony as extremely concerning. It suggests that the FBI cannot adequately track the activities and operations of its informants and that it lost control of its CHSs present at the Capitol on January 6th, he wrote. These revelations reinforced existing concerns identified by Special Counsel Durham about the FBI's use of and payment to CHSs who have fabricated evidence and misrepresented information. Goes on to say here, Jordan has asked Wray to provide a substantive briefing on how the FBI used paid informants on January 6th and any specific guidelines or admonishments that were provided to FBI CHSs prior to deploying. So, I mean, this is very interesting here. It's obviously not going to get a lot of attention by the mainstream press. Okay, this is a report in the New York Post, who does tend to have a tendency to report things that don't get coverage by the big three networks at a minimum, and a lot of the cable news networks as well. They had all these hearings and all these investigations by people at the Capitol about what was going on, and threats to democracy, and how Donald Trump instigated this whole thing when the whole time this thing was an inside job. And we're starting to get drips of evidence that proves this. Okay, a lot of people had suspected it. A lot of people were hinting that this was the case. There's a reason why they freaked out. Chuck Schumer and other rhinos on the January 6th committee when Tucker Carlson threatened to release all of the January 6th footage because it was selectively edited. They left a whole bunch of it out. They didn't want you to see people being let in, people being escorted around the Capitol, people behaving. They wanted you to think that all of these people were there for an insurrection and they were going to overthrow the government when Well, if you've been paying attention, you've known all along that that wasn't the case. But now even more evidence is coming out showing that this was no insurrection. In fact, this wasn't even organically generated. This was perpetrated by the federal government. Okay. So I thought this was interesting here. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this. I wanted to put it out there. So we also saw today that Ray Epps was hit with a very minor charge. Okay. Now, a lot of people have called Ray Epps a Fed. I don't know if he's actually a Fed. I think at the very least, he's a dupe. He was a useful idiot that was used to sort of escalate things leading up to January 6th. Was he actually a Fed? I don't know, but he was clearly put in that position or allowed to be in that position to serve a purpose that was something that the federal government wanted to see happen. So, anyways, that's what I think. Let me know what you all think. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.